Hello everyone, welcome to my learning management system. I have chosen to use Google Classroom, and my unit of study is a book club on the book The Witches by Roald Dahl. To explain my learning management system, I have laid it out week by week. One of the biggest things in third grade is I wanted to keep this simple because they are only 8 and 9-year-olds. So you will notice that the directions are very basic and I didn't want to overwhelm them. I began with the icebreaker. The students will be introducing themselves and getting to know each other as readers. I used the Notely app, which is very similar to Padlet. The next thing the students will be doing is creating a calendar. Again, in third grade, we focus heavily on organization, and it's very important that the students learn to manage their time independently. So I'm very eager to see how this portion of the unit plan goes, to see how well they can manage their time and how well they do with meeting those deadlines, and they will input their information on this Google Calendar. And one feature I really like about Google Classroom is that it offers a calendar right here. So if I wanted to, I could go in and input all of their due dates in here as well to help them have a double reminder of when everything is due, and they're able to access this at any time too from their home computers or whatnot. Back to Google Classroom. Each week the students will be asked to complete a discussion rubric. Basically, I'm asking them to grade themselves on how they believe they participated this week. Because this is something they are going to be doing each week, I have taken the time in week 1 to explain things a little bit further. And one of my favorite things about Google is the Google extensions. And I was made aware of a Google extension called Read Write where you can leave audio comments. So you'll notice on the right-hand side I have an audio comment which basically explains the discussion expectations rather than simply having the students read them, which could be extremely helpful for third graders. Each week the students will also be asked to complete a reading response. This is a very big part of this unit, so it is a formative assessment and it will be something I look at each week. So there is a screencast to help them, and there is an example and a rubric on here as well. Week 2, I began with another discussion question. As they get deeper into the book, they are going to begin analyzing the characters heavily. So you will notice that the rest of the Google Classroom focuses on character analysis. Here they will be able to leave their discussion posts, or you'll notice I added a few different options for them. They can handwrite or they can respond orally, whatever they choose as a group. The story elements was another portion that we focused on in third grade, so this was a learning objective. So therefore I made it one of my learning objects, and it is simply an interactive website for them to look at different story elements. Next, they will be completing a summary each week. I have chosen chapter 7 for them, and together they will write their summary. And into week 2, we have a discussion rubric. Week 3, they have a new summary. They're up to chapter 17 now. They'll respond as a group there. Finally, their week 3 discussion rubric. And as I said before, character analysis is a huge part of third grade. So I have a ongoing online graphic organizer that they will be completing as they read the book The Witches. Because it's ongoing, I also have an electronic book here that they can use to help them come up with those character traits. There's a special way to download the book club, so I did create a screencast to help the students with that. And finally is the summative assessment, the final project, creating a book trailer through iMovie. I'm very eager to see how this goes because the students will have an extremely authentic audience, as the librarians and library media specialists have offered to show these on the smartboards and TVs we have in the library to get other students excited to read this entertaining Roald Dahl book. So what did I find to be successful about Google Classroom? Well, having dabbled in Google Classroom before, choosing this LMS was a no-brainer. I've played around with it and it's super user-friendly. You will notice I've created Google Docs, and every week the assignment is a Google Doc. Well, it's as simple as a click of a button. I can create announcements, I can create assignments, I can create discussion questions, and one of my favorites is I can reuse posts. So as I said earlier, each week they're creating a summary, each week they're creating a reading response, each week they're continuing with their ongoing assignment, so I can simply reuse those posts to remind them with a click of a button. Creating assignment is extremely easy. You click here, type in your title, if there's any instructions, and then you can click the Google Drive icon and it's going to bring up every single one of your documents. Click, add, and there it is. So that is extremely user-friendly, which is another reason I find this to be successful. It's also a time saver, I believe, because you've already done all the work and it's simply just putting it into an LMS, a management system. One area I'm always working towards is creating digital citizens, and I think that this online course is going to allow me to easily teach those digital citizenship skills through the discussion board. So not only will they be using websites like Notely or Padlet, but they can also respond to the discussion right in here by adding class comments, and it's a great way for us to talk about the correct way to comment online. Finally, I think this online course will better a unit I've used in the past. This past year I started a workshop model, and one thing I worked on was book clubs, but I wasn't totally sold on how it worked. So I'm excited to see how this online course works, and I think it's a perfect opportunity to try something new and engage my students even more, and I'm excited to see what success they have with it. As many of you may know from past discussions throughout this course, it's safe to say I was a little bit skeptical about online learning and online courses in 3rd grade. It's difficult for me to wrap my head around. So as I created this unit, there were several times where there will be several times I meet with my students face-to-face, but I think I realized that's the beauty of a blended classroom, that they have the opportunity to discuss these things not only online, as in my icebreaker, but also if you look at week 2, they can simply do this back and forth orally if they choose. Also in 3rd grade, all we do is model, which is why I have used screencasts. I've embedded voice directions because I want to be sure that my students are understanding what is expected. Although it's not difficult to do, it's time consuming. So I felt that that could have been something that was a little bit difficult. Thankfully, keeping all things Google, as I talked about before, you'll notice every single document is a Google Doc. So that made it very easy to input everything into Google Classroom. Finally, the last area that was difficult for me was the due dates. Not knowing my students for next year and not knowing exactly how curriculum is going to lay out, I'm not sure if these dates will do. But basically what I did is I started with the first full week in November, and I began with the introduction question, and then I'm hopeful that all of week 1 can be done in those 5 days. It may not be, so that might be something that I have to change as time goes on. Finally, my biggest roadblock, I would say, was probably just getting into the mindset of teaching an online setting and knowing that it's possible. And I think that I have not only 2 coworkers that I'm taking this class with and who have been by my side through this whole process, but also the library media specialist who really pumped me up and let me know that, hey, 3rd graders can do this. So together we would meet to discuss the ways to make this possible. So we would have like weekly homework dates at school to talk about things, and that was extremely helpful for me to overcome all those problems I felt I might run into. And I think ultimately talking through what seems like a daunting task is probably one of the best ways to get over those problems. And finally, I just want to thank all of you for that Backchat channel, because I felt like any roadblock I may have had or any question I may have had was answered by the time I came across it. So thank you all for that. And if you are interested in Google and you use Google often, I highly recommend this LMS system. And feel free to ask me any questions if you have any. Have a great rest of your summer.